Hey, what's going on, everyone? In this video, we're going to be looking at the Moondrop Chew. So, yeah, it comes with these ear hooks, some ear tips, and this case, card holder style case. So yeah, let's talk about the build, cable fit, and then we'll get into the bass, mid-range, treble, soundstage imaging, and detail retrieval, and then we'll make some comparisons. So yeah, let's start off with the bass. This IEM has really good bass. It has good amounts of punch to it, and it pops up really nicely. It's not that boosted, and I do prefer a neutral sound in the bass, because some IEMs have too much bass, and what that does is it shifts your focus to that region. So the bass is really punchy. The mid bass isn't that boosted. It's slightly elevated, but the bass never bleeds into any of the other frequencies. So you get a good punch, and it's nice and tight. I don't have any complaints with the bass. Really good. So if you listen to tracks like rap, hip hop, EDM, this has good amounts of bass. It's not bass head level bass. If you want like a bass head IEM, I think the Moondrop Variations is probably good for that. But in terms of the quantity of bass, I like to choose bass more, because the Variations, the bass should just get a little too much, like too much bounciness. And when you listen to tracks that don't have too much bass, that's where the Variations isn't that great, because it makes some tracks just sound bass heavy for no reason. So yeah, that's the bass. Really good. The quality of the bass is not bad at all. I'd say you could probably compare the sound quality of this IEM to maybe $100 to $200 IEM. Yeah, so it's definitely up there. So yeah, this is a spot on IEM. And yeah, so I really do like the bass. It's fairly neutral. It's not that boosted. Maybe slightly compared to the ER2SC and some of those other IEMs. I think you guys would like the bass presentation on this. It's not emphasized to an annoying amount. You have good amounts of rumble when the song calls for it. So yeah, now let's talk about the mid-range. So the mid-range is fairly naturally tuned on this, and when I first heard it, I was actually kind of shocked. I thought it would have like some grainy texture, or the tonality was a little off, or some metallicness, but I didn't hear any issues in the mid-range. It sounded really natural, and it didn't sound boxy at all. It had good note weight. It wasn't thin in any way. So yeah, really good. So for male or female voices, this does an excellent job. It is slightly forward in the mid-range. So on some tracks, if they're more forward, this will present the sound in the same manner. It's not going to be dialed back. But then on other tracks that are mastered with the voice being slightly behind, this will sound exactly like that. So yeah, really good mid-range. So yeah, let's talk about instruments now. So if you listen to violin, piano, flutes, guitars, it's going to have good amounts of clarity. But I think if it had maybe a little bit more mid bass, it would help with certain instruments. And then in terms of like the localization of the instruments, where everything is placed, I'd say it competes with $100 to $200 pair for instrument localization. But then when you get up to like some more expensive IEMs, it doesn't really compete with them. So they're really, really good. Pianos, everything, it just sounds really natural. And for $20 IEM to do that, I wasn't expecting this to sound that great. This essentially makes the aria useless and the Starfield probably useless, because I prefer this to the aria by a huge margin. I thought the aria had like grainy mid-range, not enough treble, and the bass wasn't good enough. This sounds way better than the aria, in my opinion. Yeah, just a random comparison. And then, yeah, now let's talk about the treble. So, for a dynamic driver IEM, I think this does a really, really good job in the treble. You get good inflections in the voices. It doesn't reach, like, to the highest octave like some IEM like the Helios does, but this costs, like, I don't know, like, maybe 50 times more or something like that. Yeah, 50 times more, so that's totally fine. It probably reaches, I would have to look at the chart, but maybe 15 kilohertz or something. So yeah, really, really good treble. I actually do enjoy this. So I would say the IEM doesn't really have that bad of a weakness. It sounds really natural. And yeah, so let's talk about the soundstage and imaging. So that's where this IEM doesn't do that good of a job. Because in terms of where everything is placed when instruments come in and out, the localization isn't that great, and the soundstage is a little closed in. You don't get the sense of open, airy depth to the sound. But then again, almost no IEM has a good soundstage or imaging unless you're spending thousands, like the U12T, IER, Z1R, some of those pairs. So yeah, overall, I'd say the soundstage is decent. It's slightly outside of your head. And then the imaging is also okay. Nothing spectacular. So yeah, probably the biggest weakness of this IEM is soundstage and imaging. It just doesn't have that much depth or that much height. So everything's kind of closed in. So yeah, now let's talk about the detail retrieval. So I would say this is really detailed for the price. Like I said, again, it competes with IEMs that cost $100 to $200. So this is a C Audio Yume, which costs about $150 or around there. So I'd say these two have similar amounts of detail. In terms of soundstage and imaging, I think the Yume is slightly better, but they're pretty close. So yeah, I would give this probably a C grade for the detail, around a C. Yeah, it's pretty good. So in terms of the tuning, I do prefer the tuning on this IEM compared to some more expensive IEMs. So in comparison to the Moondrop variations, I do like the bass on this more. And I like the bass on the C Audio Yume more also than the variations, because these two hit my perceived neutral for the bass, but the Yume of course does it better in the bass department than the True. But yeah, the C Audio Yume OG just hits my perceived neutral somehow in the bass and the mid-range. Yeah, And then the variation just has too much bass sometimes. So yeah, I would say it's pretty spot on for 20 bucks for it to sound this good. The tuning of this is way better than any IEM I've heard in this price range. Is it as detailed as the ER2SC? Probably not. But again, this competes with some pairs that cost 100 or 200 bucks. So yeah, really, really good. And I would recommend it. So if you're a beginner and you're getting new into the hobby, or this is one of your first IEMs, you don't have that much to spend, just get the Moondrop True and then save your money to get something better later down the line. But yeah, I think you should definitely give this a shot because it competes with way more expensive IEMs. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any specific questions or comparisons that I didn't cover in the video, just comment down below and I'll get back to you. And yeah, other than that, have a great day and I'll see you guys in the next one.